promise. Right? It's a city which many people wish to come here, realize their dreams. So it is a home of many immigrants, okay, except those local Indian tribes, right? Fox, Sioux, but everyone else is immigrant. So it is a land, dreamland, a land where immigrants can realize their dream. Why people come here? Because unique geographical location, right? You have the river, you have the proximity of the Great Lakes. So from the beginning, Chicago has become a hub of water transportation, and later on, rail center, right? Center of the rail transportation, and the modern time, air transportation. So because of this advantage in air, water, rail transportation, Chicago, from the very beginning, became a center of immigrants. The town started as small. In 1933, it was incorporated. There are only over 300 people. But by 1870s, you have hundreds of thousands of people came. By 1890, Chicago had 500,000 people, became the second largest city in the United States. And among them, just like I believe Chicago is today, majority were immigrants. Most of them were German, Irish, Jewish, Polish, I mean the Poles, okay, and Armenia, and other immigrants. And later on, Asian immigrants also came. So this is a place where immigrants can realize its dream. Likewise, okay, the makers and the shakers, politicians, who I believe also kind of immigrants. They're political immigrants, right? When you campaign, you have to go from town to town. You go in, you go out. For example, our mayor, current mayor, Ron Paul, right? Ron Emanuel, Ron Paul. Ron Emanuel, right? He was in Chicago, but then he moved to D.C. He was the handleman of President Obama. But then he returned back, come back, because he wanted to run mayor, right? And another most appalling, compelling example is our President Obama. In 1985, he came here as a community organizer. He worked in the far south side. But in how many years later? From 85 to 2008. Because my brain is very slow now. 23, yeah, because I haven't had sleep for 2 days. So I'm very slow. I see these things wrong. So this 23 years takes a student who is a child of African international student to become a president, and the first president of mixed heritage. which is remarkable. Okay? So that just says, Chicago is a great city. Many people can realize their dream. And this city, no wonder that Chicago became a leading one of the 20 cosmopolitans in the world as early as 1890s. Okay? There are 20 such cities. And of course, we know New York, London, Moscow, Petersburg, and St. Louis. So people might ask, why do you think Chicago is a cosmopolitan, leading cosmopolitan centers? So generally, the scholars have two criteria. Okay. For a city to be qualified as a cosmopolitan center, the city either hosted the Olympics or World Expos. So Chicago did that, not only once, but twice, right? First in 1893, then 1933-34. So it is a great city. However, I think you must feel that. I felt it, because Chicago, as well as the other metropolises in the Midwest, have not received the recognition they deserve. Okay? Chicago is a great city. But people come to here, first come to New York. But in many ways, I think Chicago maybe can surpass those large cities. The cities with more glamour, more fame. So I felt, what can I do? I don't have a great ambition because I'm also immigrant. I can tell you some story for myself. I came here in 1985 as a Chinese government-sponsored scholar, a student, for which it's not easy to be because I was one of the first students in the humanities to be dispatched by Chinese government. I have to jump a lot of hoops, took exam after exam, pass many exams, then pass many political background check, screening. So I came here. I began to learn more and more of the history. So when I come, okay, I actually already taught. I was already a historian before I came. Okay? I taught at the university as a assistant professor with only a bachelor's degree, okay, which was not unusual in China. Many universities hired their top students as a professor. Okay? So I was the first in the rank in my class, a very top student. So when the time came to my dissertation, I was choosing the topic. I finally decided to write on Chinese American women, which became my dissertation, Surviving on the Golden Mountain, a life of Chinese American women and their lives. Why did I do that? Because I felt, I'm the woman and I'm Asian, I'm Chinese, right? So this would be the logical choice. Maybe initially I was thinking it would be easier for me to do it. But the more I study, the more I love it. And that becomes my life. Not only my profession, but also my passion. And I'm obsessed with it. So people oftentimes ask me, how can you write that many books? You must not sleep. Which is true. I am not joking because I have severe insomnia. That I got it after because my son was left in China behind. I was dreaming of him. I always woke up in nightmares, so I got insomnia since then, and oftentimes I couldn't sleep. Then I get out to work. So a lot of my work was done in that status. Okay, even that was I didn't have my great mental state, but I worked nonetheless. Okay, so cumulatively, little by little, I have the books here. So when I was doing my research, I realized that not only the woman are not recorded or very limited study, but this large whole area, okay, besides the East Coast and the West Coast, this whole area of Midwest and the South were left out. There's almost no work except Paul Sui's book, which was published in 1987. There are a lot of unpublished works, okay, dissertations, master's theses, and a lot of community work, but they are not available to the public. They're unknown. So I began to feel this large area, maybe I can do something. I'd like to study it. So it became kind of my motivation to focus my research in this area. In a way, I didn't have the great ambition of scholars oftentimes like to see. We want to recenter this, we want to decenter that, right? The scholar like to see construction, deconstruction, reconstruction is always the term. I didn't have ambition to decentralize or decenter Asian American studies. But I just felt, this area is left out. There are a lot of good information to be covered, a lot of stories to be shared. And also, I felt there are many stories, many works about the Chinese in Chicago. The earlier ones, like Paul Sui's fans, like Susan Lemoy. Okay. She wrote a wonderful dissertation, master's thesis, and then later on, there's a chapter included in Marvin Howley, right? Marvin Howley's As with Chicago, a chapter on the Chinese Chicago, Chinatown. Susan, I have never met her personally, but I have great admiration. I learned you through your work. Okay. And for example, Dr. Ling, John Aronson, probably some of you know her. Okay. Her article, along with Dr. Resenau's article about the language use. She wrote an article about the new Chinatown, the Chinese community since 1965, okay, which is also very inspirational. So all of this work Mark. Mark, by the way, you also know Mark. Mark is director of Asian American Studies at the University of Illinois in Chicago. He done a lot of wonderful work. Okay? So you can discuss more with him afterward. So I felt, so many work, these are we can put them all together, play them, and also thread, connect all this past almost 150 years history together in a more comprehensive way. So I'm thinking about not only just like a chronicler. Okay? I'm not just a chronicler, because historical writing, traditional Chinese historical writing or study is just a chronicle. Okay? You write down the events, you don't do any interpretation or theorizing. But now, in academic field, the theorizing is a very important trend, right? I'm not very good at that, but I would like to also follow trends sometimes. So thinking, okay, find a way to theorizing the importance of Chicago Chinese community. And also I felt another thing was lacking is that there are also a lot of wonderful works and sources in Chinese that are not in public, okay? Because many, even the descendants of Chinese Americans, they could speak Chinese fluently. They probably could read Chinese, right? But because of this physical distance with Chinese culture, with Chinese language, the Chinese language is not that accessible to many. While there are many great works written by Chinese scholars. So I feel there's this lacking, we're studying transnational migration, transnationalism, but this transnational research is not really well connected yet. Many scholars are doing that, but there's still a long way to go. There's room for improvement. So in this book, I also aspire to incorporate a lot of Chinese language primary sources. For example, gazetteers, Chinese government statistics, or so-called hometown magazines, okay? Local or regional magazines of the overseas Chinese native place or the sending place, so-called the qiaopan. And a lot of the diaries, personal diaries, or interviews, they are not available. They are there, but people don't have easy access to them. So that is one of my incentive, okay, to write this book, to record cordially, to record the history of Chinese and their community in this past almost 150 years, and also make all the work and the sources as much as I can available to the public. I'm going to, here is a kind of like outline, what I'm going to center on or focus on, help me to stay focused. I will go along by this order. And this order also more or less is consistent with the chapter of the book. If you already got a copy, you probably, I know some of you already read it. For example, Margie, she got it from Amazon and read the whole thing. And asked further questions. I sent her a reply, but her firewall bounced back, but she can get it. I will go over one by one. If I lose you, or if you don't understand me, because I do have Chinese accent as English, okay, stop me. First chapter I have searching the roots. Okay. Where I trace this long history of immigration. So immigration is nothing new. It's part of the human activities. Okay. People say the three things determine the human. One of them is migration. Okay. Then this mutation. Right? Because of migration, because of mutation, human evolved to what we are today. So that's natural instinct, human's instinct to migrate, to move from place to place. Right? The Chinese say, 人往高处走，水往低处流. So this is natural force, right? So why